Mr. Skinner, one of the objectives of the SBIR program is to foster and encourage participation by minorities and women in the SBIR program. Despite this fact, a National Academies of Science report recently concluded that agencies do not have a uniformly positive record funding research by women and minority-owned firms. How will the federal and state technology partnership program, as it is reauthorized in the draft bill, help federal agencies address this concern?
Thank you for the question. Learning the rules. I believe it's very smart of the committee to include in the legislation a requirement that the FAST awards specifically address how they're going to identify two particular groups, those geographic areas that aren't served well and populations that don't win awards. It's going to require the state programs and the local programs involved to demonstrate what they're already doing in those target audiences, but increase or set aside additional funding to address their particular ways to reach women scientists and engineers that they may not be doing currently. But I think that's one of the advantages of FAST is it takes advantage of the 1,100 to 1,200 organizations already in existence around the country to help the agencies reach into places that they can't reach from their installations or their centers.
Very good, thanks. Dr. Matthews, the guidelines for Phase 1 and Phase 2 grant sizes have not increased since 1992. The committee print doubles the grant size guidelines to $200,000 for Phase 1 and $1.5 million for Phase 2. Given the work you do with small innovative companies, how do you expect larger average awards will impact sought-after increases in the commercialization rates of SBIR-funded research?
It's an excellent question because obviously things have changed over a period of time, and costs have gone up across a number of sectors in a variety of areas. Specifically with regards to the amount of money that's needed, especially in early stages, which is, I think, one of the hallmarks and strengths of SBIR has escalated over time, especially, and with a lot of them have long lead times. There's a need for more capital expenditure at the front end of that period. So I would support those increases. Again, I think this is a leveraged program. I don't think it ever can stand all by itself. It has to be used in combination with other sources of capital, and that source of capital is a broad continuum from friends, families, and founders all the way up to venture capital. And SBIR falls within that continuum. So I would definitely support that increase.
Thank you. And Mr. Heeson, an important component of his small firm's effort to commercialize the research can be the receipt of an investment from firms such as those that you represent. Why do initiatives that help small firms develop the research to a greater degree of commercial readiness before they graduate from SBIR encourage more VC firms to invest in SBIR graduates?
As Mr. Leahy said, we are not in this totally for altruistic purposes. We are in this to make money at the end of the day. And so the more certain you are of a company's trajectory, the more likely you are to invest in it. And so if you see the commercial viability of an entity being much greater because you have basically grown that company to the point where it's just better to see what the future is, you're going to be more apt to invest in that company. Just as you'll be more apt to know if it has good patent protection, if it has a good management team, if it has an ability to grow a business long term because it understands global competition. All of these things are part and parcel of growing a company. So if you're able to make these companies more professional, frankly, and more apt to understand the nuances of working in a fast-changing environment, we are more likely to invest at the end of the day.
Thank you. Mr. Greenwood, my understanding is that venture capital investments are often tied to the development of companies' lead therapies or technologies. In your industry, this means that companies cannot use the investment to fund research and development of secondary applications of the lead therapy. If the SBIR eligibility provisions included in this bill became law, how will small firms with venture capital backing be better able to explore secondary applications of their firm's lead research?
Thank you. That's an important question. What frequently will happen is, if you can imagine a small company that might have spun out of a university from NIH granted research and develop a molecule that it thinks is a very good candidate to, let's say, cure prostate cancer. And they make enough progress with the help of, among other things, SBIR grants, and then the venture capital companies see them and say, this company really shows some progress with this molecule, let's invest in it. And so they invest in that particular molecule to cure that particular kind of cancer. Meanwhile, back in the laboratory, there may be a scientist who says, do you know, I think from my research that same molecule might be able to cure brain cancer, or we have another molecule or another protein here that we think can do something else. The venture capitalists may say, that's very nice, but that's not why we invested in it. We watched the progress of your, on that first compound or molecule, and we want you to keep our money there. And under the current system, since the administrative law judge ruling, that company can't go back to the SBIR and say, how about you fund this new idea? Under your proposed draft, they will be able to. And that's critical, because having that opportunity to then get some data with that new molecule, to get some advancement in their research, then they can achieve the kind of milestone or proof of concept that then will attract venture capitalists or other venture capitalists to come and say, okay, now that one is worth investing in as well. And at the end of the day, this is about whether we do or do not cure brain cancer. And that's why, in my view, the bottom line of this entire program is we put all that money in the NIH because we want to cure disease. And we want to construct a system for small businesses, whether they're backed by venture capital or not backed by venture capital, that gets us to the goal, cure disease. And that should be, we need to keep our eye on that ball.
Thank you.